Yeah, I mean, I think this it's an area that's has huge potential, but when you look at the buying and delivery cycle,
Mhm.
from procuring contract delivery of services, there are so many steps where there's so much potential for value to be added all along the way. Even if it's just driving a more competitive process where people are just direct awarding stuff to the same suppliers all the time, maybe because all of their suppliers aren't easily visible across the
Sure.
organization. Where if they're centralized through an outsourced provision in a piece of technology, it's easier for them to see what's available, and procurement can help guide them, or there can be scoring on what's supplier A's average cost overrun versus supplier B, all these sorts of things. But also in the upfront process of actually defining what's going to be delivered, like quite often you're getting kind of people suppliers potentially marking their own homework or
Yep.
creating bids that are a self-fulfilling prophecy that are automatically just going to end up going to them. And that's an area where it's really interesting to see some of the stuff going on with AI, with these large language models, where it's basically pulling together. We've done stuff around scoping with ChatGPT, and I think there's just huge potential in that area to help people kind of create requirements more effectively, and end up with a place to start and things to refine. And obviously, procurement can get involved in that process more if what's happening is going through a systemized process where maybe if it's above a 50K buy, it then has to go through some sort of review where someone in procurement just has to gets notified and just looks at a requirement and says, well, you've kind of covered these main areas. Yeah, that's great. Off you go. Or they maybe give a bit of advice on structure and content. But also that can be done. AI can help with that. So there are lots
Sure.
of these kind of value points all the way through the process. And it's like if you start in the right way, you build up this value. It aggregates all the way through to that holy
Right.
grail of ultimately being able to say, when we're doing these types of projects, these are the suppliers we should be thinking about. Or typically when in this particular area of the business, we're always getting cost overruns. Or we've got this big supplier that's got a great relationship with the C-suite. They do loads of good stuff for us in finance, but we're spending tens of millions a year with them in marketing. Why is that? We've got these other suppliers that are doing a better job in marketing. Why is that spend just going over there? So it allows a lean procurement team, which as you mentioned earlier, most procurement teams are extremely lean. It allows
Mhm.
them to manage the strategic element of a much greater volume of spend because they've got a system effectively doing the legwork and hopefully
Yep.
making life easier for the buyers, the hiring managers, the buying managers, and the suppliers at the same time by automating those interactions, and just giving them control and process, and then you guys kind of pass them back a lot of information which they can then use strategically. And I think um, that's where the market needs to get to. But for a lot of organizations, they're kind of at square one when it comes to services procurement, in the sense that there's a lot of stuff going on. Apart from some really top level big suppliers doing strategic stuff, it's just impossible for them to keep on top of it because it's not in a system and it's just all happening too fast and it's too complicated.
And it's you're right. Like there's a lot of activity. This huge amount of activity. It's got to happen yesterday. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of visibility, and yeah, it just gets swamped. So I think you're 100% correct. And like this is where I'm. I think there's a really good place for MSPs here, where they provide their staffing solution, or their team solution has to have procurement support. Like they really need to have procurement professionals in there. They're actually experienced and understand how that buying process works. They're able to kind of leap in a little bit. And especially I would, propose that during that first 6, 12, 18 month period, that they take a real hands-on approach and really supplement that procurement team, internal procurement team, to make sure that they've got the support they need, the additional bandwidth, so they're able to kind of work through this process and kind of evolve that solution for them. I I can't stress enough that the time, like you've hit upon it, like it really is like the time, the load, the burden to get all these things done. Every organization wants their stuff done immediately. The internal approvals are just seen as overhead. I've done my deal. I've talked to my supplier, and it can get done. And I appreciate that as a significant thing, finding the person who's actually going to deliver on it. But then the internal processing to get approvals and to get the people on site to do that, that's seen as overhead, and that's a burden. And it's not. it's not being positioned correctly. It really is not just approval, it's authority to spend the money. Is it the right spend? Are we doing all our checks and balances, to your point, making sure the right suppliers are being used, making sure the value in the contracts there, whether it's commercial or whether, the terms are actually going to be favorable long-term. Is it is it time for, is the schedule of the actual deliverable going to meet with the organizational goals, etc.? All those things need to be taken into account and done. It's not just, hey, I've gone and talked to Joe Blow, he took me to lunch and it's a great deal and I'm going ahead. There's a lot of work, and that rigor needs to be there. It really does. But to your point, there's a lot of opportunity. We're using the tools. AI's, I'm a convert on the thing that AI is going to help with a lot of that low level. It's not going to give you, the total solution that needs oversight and everything around it, but it is going to be able to take out that low level, that first cut where we're able to build contracts, make sure the right conditions are in place, making sure that every benefit that you're looking for is in, every benefit or everything that you want ruled out is out. All those sort of things, all that transactional stuff that we need eyes at the moment to look at, it's going to help in that tremendously. And maybe we can turn that, the turnaround time from writing the original agreement to signed off. You always hear the people, I can get it done in 4 hours. I can walk it around the office and get it all done. Well, tremendous. But I think if we can get it done in probably a couple of days on average, then we're doing a fantastic job.